In Yu-Gi-Oh! There are winners and losers, and I'm not just talking about players. New cards constantly enter circulation, adding new archetypes and revitalizing old ones in hopes that they might see competitive viability. Over the decades, Konami has left us with some pretty weird grouping of cards, and we're running down 10 of the bizarre archetypes that fail to leave a real-world impact on the competitive scene. But before we really kick things off, I want to qualify that I only wanted to include archetypes with a significant amount of cards on this list, so sorry Aitsu and those other guys. And destined to open this list at number 10 are the Arcana Force. This line of light fairy monsters and their support made their TCG debut in 2008's Light of Destruction set. They had a menacing presence in the GX anime that their TCG counterparts failed to live up to for many years, with things only recently turning around for them with the introduction of some cracked legacy support in 2025's Supreme Darkness. The Arcana Force monsters draw inspiration from the practice of divining one's future using tarot cards. Cartomatic tarot decks include 22 named cards making up the Major Arcana, and 56 unnamed cards, the Minor Arcana. When used as tools for divination, the cards carry different meanings that vary based on the context of when they are drawn and how they land, regular or upside down. The Arcana Force monsters are for the most part analogous to the Major Arcana, sharing names and numbers with the tarot deck. This begins with Arcana Force 0, the Fool, and builds up to Arcana Force 21, the World. There are also the Arcana Force Extra monsters, Arcana Force EX, the Light Ruler, Arcana Force EX, the Dark Ruler, and Arcana Force EX, the Chaos Ruler. However, these do not have a tarot counterpart. In addition to their names, the Arcana Force monsters evoke the unpredictable essence of future predicting tarot by all having a coin flip. On heads, they demonstrate one effect, and on tails, another, mimicking the way the tarot cards can be regular or reverse, changing their significance. For most of the Arcana cards, they have a positive effect when their on-summon coin flip lands heads, and a negative effect when they flip lands tails. While this is a stylistically cool interpretation of the archetype's inspiration, having all of your effects rely on a coin flip that might hurt you was not a strong foundation for competitive strategy. To compensate, many Arcana Force cards have powerful effects, particularly the World, a card that's infamous for its FTK applications. The Heads effect of the World activates during your end phase and lets you send 2 monsters you control to the graveyard to skip your opponent's next turn. If you can field and resolve the World's positive effect on turn 1, you can run away with the entire game without letting your opponent have a single turn. But although the Arcana Force monsters had tools to help you mitigate the outcome of your coin flips for years, check out Reversal of Fate and Light Barrier, the deck was relegated to gimmicky FTK strategies, notable for the World and literally nothing else. Arcana Force 14 Temperance saw playing Duel Links as a defensive hand trap, but even there, the built-in inconsistency of the Arcana Force proved too janky to use. Duel Links skills, probably intended to benefit Arcana Force strategies, like Satoru's Kumar's Master of Destiny, which guaranteed your first 3 coin flips landed heads, were mostly used with other cards, like Desperado Barrel Dragon and Head Judging. Honestly, the entire idea of Arcana Force is just so obviously strategically bad that it would rank a lot higher in this list, if not for the January 2025 Supreme Darkness set, which drastically boosted the power level and consistency of Arcana Force strategies. Light Force is a wildly powerful continuous spell that lets you discard a card to add 2 Arcana Force monsters with different names from your deck to your hand. During the standby phase, a coin flip will determine if the effect of Light Force are negated for the turn, but that doesn't factor during the turn you activate this spell during your main phase. With Arcana Force 15, the Fiend, able to discard itself to search Light Barrier, a field spell to help you manipulate Arcana Force outcomes, and Arcana Force 19, the Sun, able to extend while setting up a coin tossing spell from deck, post-Suda Arcana Force strategies can consistently get to the dangerous Arcana Force 21, the World end board. If your opponent doesn't have the interruption to stop you, then you're going to lose. And that's why Arcana Force only takes number 10 spot on this list. Historically, they have been one of Yu-Gi-Oh's stranger failed archetypes. In 2025, this really isn't the case. But the 17 years between Light of Destruction and Supreme Darkness still happened, so they're still part of this video. And bear with me, because number 9 goes to the super mecha space bears, the Ursarctics. Now, these are a line of water attribute Beast, Beast Warrior, and Machine monsters from 2021's Ancient Guardian set. The main deck Ursarctics are split between level 8 Mega Bears like Ursarctic Mega Polar and Ursarctic Mega Tannis, and the level 7 Minor Bears like Ursarctic Mikabilis and Ursarctic Mikpolar. All of these main deck bears are able to special summon themselves from hand by tributing another level 7 or higher monster from hand or field. The level 7 Mech Bears activate their effects on summon, while the level 8 Mega Bears get their effects when they are summoned while you control another Ursarctic monster. So you'll probably want to field your 7s before you get to your 8s to maximize activations. Also, the level 8s are all tuners, which is puzzling, because what do you do with a level 8 tuner plus a level 7 non-tuner? Who's out there synchronizing level 15s? Well, here's where things start to get a little weird. Ursarctic Polari and Ursarctic Polar Star are your two options when you start synchroing, but they're level 1. On paper, synchro summoning a level 1 monster should be impossible, since they're taking the sum of levels of your materials. But both Ursarctic Polari and Polar Star have alternative summon conditions where they're brought out by sending 2 monsters you control to the graveyard. Those monsters must be a combination of a tuner and non-tuner with a level difference of 1. The idea is that you then summon another level 8 Ursarctic Mega Bear tuner from hand so that you have a level 1 non-tuner and a level 8 tuner together on the field. You can then special summon your Ursarctic Synchro boss monsters Grand Chariot and Serpentrion by sending the 2 to the grave, a tuner and non-tuner with a level difference of 7. Ursarctic Grand Chariot pops on summon and can negate an effect that targets an Ursarctic card, while Ursarctic Serpentrion can search an Ursarctic card and blanket negates the effects of monsters without a level. This is all very weird and pretty cool on paper. So why doesn't it work? Well, it's expensive. Sure, you don't need a normal summon, but your specials still require tribute. Sure, there are Ursarctic consistency cards to help you get around that. Ursarctic Radiation is a continuous spell that can let you draw 7 cards in one turn. And it's bananas that it's not enough for Ursartics to see real experimentation. Another major downside is that in order to consistently pull off your Ursarctic combos, you have to run a lot of high-level monsters. If you don't have the resources to special summon Mick and Mega Bears from hand, you're lost in space. This makes it hard for the Ursartics to play nicely with other engines and tech cards, which is even stranger considering that they exist in this same cosmos as the Drytrons, and even have crossover cards, like Ursarctic Drytron, Ultimate Flagship Ursatron, and Ultimate Bright Knight Ursatron Alpha. But Ursartics did finally find a format where they could be stars in Duel Links. Reduce main deck size both lessen the need for large quantities of non-engine hand traps, and let the Space Bears play kinder ratios without falling behind other decks. Though their stint in the spotlight would dwindle over time, there's still a decent strategy on that platform. But yeah, any archetype with a card that says, sure, go ahead and draw 7, that still struggles competitively, gets a spot on this list, no question. The Meklords are an archetype of machine monsters that entered the TCG in 2011's Extreme Victory set. Are they good? No. Are they the number 8 on this list? Yes. Like the Arcana Force monsters, which were used by the antagonist Centaurus Kumar in the GX anime, the Meklords are another line of monsters favored by the anime antagonists. This time, it's the Emperors of Iliaster from the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5e's anime. They come from a future timeline where the energy exhaust generated by rampant synchro summoning attracted the attention of evil space machines that eventually destroy the world. These are the fabled Meklords. And let's get into why their reputation is way overblown. With a few outliers, the Meklord monsters can be whittled into 3 categories. There are the Meklord Emperors, level 1 boss monsters that special summon themselves when a card on field is destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard. As of script writing, there are 4 Meklord Emperors, though there will still probably be more in time. They are Meklord Emperor Grinnell, Meklord Emperor Skeel, Meklord Emperor Weasel, and Meklord Emperor Weasel Synchro Absorption. The Meklord Army are smaller machine monsters to support the Emperors, and the Meklord Astros are another tier of boss monster. And that's all well and good and all, but creepy machines are kind of Yu-Gi-Oh's bread and butter. What's weird about Meklords and why do they fail? Well, it's kind of bizarre that the Meklords are a dedicated anti-synchro strategy. A lot of their cards only reach their full potential while your opponent runs more than a few synchro monsters. It's right there in Weasel's signature attack name, Meklord Emperor Weasel Synchro Absorption. Of course, this isn't that weird in the context of the 5D's anime they come from, where everyone is all synchro all the time. But in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, synchros are less generic than other extra deck summoning methods. So you just get less general mileage from playing as their hard counter, to the exclusion of your ability to handle other kinds of cards. But that's actually not all that's bad about the Meklords. For some reason, Meklord Emperor Weasel and Meklord Emperor Skeel come with restrictions that prevent you from using other monsters to declare battle. The rough idea is that your Meklord Army monsters mitigate this downside by making your Emperor attacks more dangerous. Meklord Army of Weasel lets your Emperor inflict piercing damage, and Meklord Army of Grinnell has an effect on normal summon to have the attack of an opponent's monster. Still, these are unnecessary drawbacks for decks that's not that good anyway. But like the Ursartics, the Meklords did see some competitive success for a while in Duel Links, mostly using Meklord Astro Dragon's Triskelion, so that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, unlike the Arcana Force, Meklord's modern support was unable to recharge their batteries of their depleted strategic reserves for the TCG, so to number 8 they go. And at number 7, we have the Solfachords, another archetype from 2021's Ancient Guardian set. The Solfachords are a fairy-type pendulum and link monsters with a bevy of back row support that failed to convince duelists to sing along. The release of pendulum monsters was a wildly contentious development within the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! Challenging basic notions of just how much text can fit on a card, they complicated the game by introducing a scale mechanic and multicolored monsters that have both monster and spell effects. Solfachords are noteworthy because someone at Konami looked at all of the pendulum monsters in Backlash and thought, this isn't messy enough. I can make them even more convoluted. The main deck pendulum fairies have passive effects that provide you with some kind of advantage, with the caveat that you only get the advantage while you have an odd or even pendulum monster scale. Thankfully, the odd cards enable your odd scale effects, and the even cards enable your even scale effects. If you're unfamiliar with these cards, you might be thinking something like, that's cool, what's the point? Well, we're not done yet. The archetype field spell, Solfachord Harmonia, lets you adjust the scales of your scaled pendulums. This can help you meet level thresholds for pendulum summoning, but does make benefiting from your even/odd pendulum passives a little inconvenient. Solfachord Elitea is a level 6 scale 6 pendulum fairy that protects you from taking battle damage from Solfachord combat. But if you use Solfachord Harmonia to nudge her scale down to 5 or up to 7, you lose that protection for the extent that her scale is adjusted. Your Link, Grand Solfachord Monster, Musica, and Kulia require both even and odd scales to maximize their effects, and the archetype trap Solfachord Musica has different effects based off the configurations of even odd scales that you control. And if all of this wasn't enough reading, Solfachord Scale and Solfachord Symphony have multi-part effects that activate in sequence based on the quantity of pendulum monsters you have with different names in different locations. Pendulum archetypes are often unfriendly to learn for new players. They might look cute, but Solfachords are the weaponized, distilled form of exactly that. 2017's Code of the Duelist set introduced the Formula Athletes, an archetype of mostly win attribute machine monsters. Despite their car racing theme, they weren't fast enough to leave an impact on the competitive scene, and barely squeak into the 6th place on this list. The FA archetype is theoretically all about speed, which makes its shortcomings very ironic. The deck takes too long to come online. The idea behind FAs is that their levels represent how fast their car is going, with their stats increasing with each level. Above a certain level threshold, many FA monsters gain strong passive effects. Take FA Hang On Mach for example. This level 4 wind machine with base 0 attack gains 300 attack points for each level, meaning it will hit the field with 1200 attack. It gains a level with each activation of an FA spell or trap, and once it's above level 7, it's also a one-sided macrocosmos, banishing any card that would have gone to your opponent's graveyard. FA Hang On Mach is also unaffected by effects activated by monsters your opponent controls with a level or rank lower than its own, making a level 7 plus Hang On Mach a serious problem. If only that didn't take one normal summon and no less than 3 spells or traps to get to that point. That's actually why FAs were totally broken in Duel Links for a time. The level augmentation skill lets you make the level of a monster on field the sum of its own plus the level of a card in your hand, leading to the infamous Car Lord strategies utilizing a high-level draw power card Dark Lord Yugioh to supercharge your FA Hang On Mach to present a bonkers end board off of just one normal summon. Though an emergency ban would add more qualifiers to level changing skills. It was interesting to see just how strong FA strategies could be with a rolling start. The continuous spell FA Winners gives the Formula Athletes an alternative win condition based off of banishing FA field spells with different names after your high-level FA monsters win a battle and inflict battle damage. But winning the life point race the old-fashioned way is usually just a lot easier. Their Link 2, FA Shining Star GT, uses athlete counters to mark speed instead of levels, and can trade a counter to negate once per turn. But these originally TCG exclusive racers still struggle to pull ahead. And that's the combination of inventive mechanics and sad irony in regard to their performance that got them middle of the pack position at number 6. B.E.S. stands for Bacterian Empire Ship, which is another way of saying number 5 on this list. They're a bunch of high-level machines with various attributes that have some cool trivia going for them, and not much else. They begin with B.E.S. Big Core, a level 6 Dark Machine with 2300 attack and 1100 defense, which was introduced in the 2004 set Rise of Destiny. Most recently reprinted as a common in 2017's OTS Tournament Pack 4. The original Big Core couldn't be destroyed by battle, but had to remove a counter from itself immediately after a battle. If these conditions were unable to be met, B.E.S. Big Core would overheat and explode. On normal summon, B.E.S. Big Core gains 3 counters, which guarantees you 3 Big Core battles, assuming you don't lose your card to other means. 2005 Cybernetic Revolution and Elemental Energy sets added B.E.S. Crystal Core, B.E.S. Tetran, and the continuous spell Boss Rush, which gave the spaceship archetype its first sense of group identity. At cost of locking yourself out of normal summon or setting, Boss Rush lets you special summon B.E.S. monsters from your deck during the end phase of a turn when another B.E.S. monster was destroyed on field. You are pretty much guaranteed to see these special summons too, since all 3 B.E.S. options available in 2005 only gained counters on normal summon. Boss Rush might have been good for deploying these ships, but they weren't going to hang around long, which is honestly pretty much what the card advertised. This is a boss rush. Things are going to be moving quickly. Future B.E.S. ships like Big Core Marks 2 and 3 and B.E.S. Blaster Cannon Core iterated on earlier models by gaining counters on special summon. And the archetype finally got a little help when the 2017 set Maximum Crisis gave them a field spell in B.E.F. Zelos. The field spell did a ton of work for the Bacterium Empire by granting their Space Navy 500 extra attack and defense points, plus protection from targeted and destruction by card effects, plus an extra counter on summon. It granted all of these passive benefits while also searching a copy of Boss Rush on activation, and allowed you to special summon a B.E.S. monster from hand once per turn. But as much as B.E.F. Zelos accomplished to make the B.E.S. ships vaguely resemble something playable, it couldn't quite achieve that goal. What it did do was make the Bacterian Empire ships just enough of a coherent archetype to land a spot on this list. But what exactly is the Bacterian Empire? What's the deal with these guys? They actually take inspiration from Konami's side-scrolling space shooter franchise, Gradius. Remember all those low-level spaceships with cool names like Lord British Space Fighter, Victory Viper XX03, Falcon B, Jade Knight, and well, Gradius? They're all from the Gradius series. And the B.E.S. cores are the enemy ships they fight, which is where Boss Rush comes from. But for as cool as this inspiration is, Konami did not play favoritism with cross-referencing franchises, leaving the B.E.S. Big Core stranded in space as a strange archetype whose playstyle is at odds with the mechanics of what their cards imply. While the counter-based battle immunities suggest these cards are meant to stick around, without Boss Rush, they don't have a lot going on. And that card only works well with about half of the B.E.S. line. Maybe the guys over the A-Team Track Disposal unit can take a break from their Parodius antics to tinker with the B.E.S. machinery. Aligning itself with the number 4 spot on this list, we have the Allies of Justice. This line of dark attribute machines officially become part of the TCG with the release of 2009's Hidden Arsenal set, which contained many cards from Konami's dual terminal arcade world. One of the unifying threads of the Allies of Justice are their anti-like tendencies. Many of the Ally of Justice carry effects that activate in response to or are enabled by light attribute monsters controlled by your opponent. Ally of Justice Grodholk gains 200 attack and defense when it battles a light monster. Ally of Justice Cosmic Gateway can be special summoned from hand if the other side of the field has 2 or more monsters and at least one of them is light. Ally of Justice Quarantine is a floodgate preventing both players from special summoning the light attribute. But light monsters aren't the only target of the Ally of Justice. Some of their numbers are designed to counter flip effect strategies, like Ally of Justice Field Marshal, who lets you draw a card after it destroys a set monster by battle. And Ally of Justice Enemy Catcher, who can take control of an opponent's set monster on summon and keep it until the end of the turn. But why focus on light attribute and flips? Well, that's because in the lore of the dual terminal world, the Allies of Justice were developed to counter the Worms, an archetype of alien invaders who share a light attribute and love to flip. According to lore, the various elemental tribes populating the dual terminal world joined together in the face of this new existential threat, pooling their resources to construct anti-light, anti-flip machines. As the war drew on, the Allies of Justice discovered the Gen X. These powerful, voiceless machines were quietly helping the planet by removing pollution from waters and doing other cool stuff. But the AOJ were like, come on guys, the worms are attacking, lock in, and started reverse engineering Gen X technology to develop stronger weapons of war. The Mist Valley tribe were a little miffed at this, and the newly awakened Fabled played on their doubts, culminating in the fracture of the AOJ. Using new Gen X technology, the remaining members of the Allies of Justice were able to further the development of their anti-light machines by incorporating aspects of the worms themselves, resulting in designs that married the biological with the inorganic. Ultimately, the final battle between the huge mega worm, Worm Zero, and the pinnacle of AOG engineering, Ally of Justice Decisive Armor, ended with the defeat of the worms. Unfortunately, the world was immediately thrown back into peril during the invasion of the Fabled, with even more planet-endangering factors coming down the pipeline. But that's for another video on another day. There's really only one more question to ask about the Allies of Justice. Are any of them good? And actually, yeah. Let's talk about Ally of Justice Cataster. This level 5 Dark Machine Synchro monster with 2200 attack was one of the earliest Ally of Justice cards to release as part of the Dual Terminal second wave of preview cards, several months before the November 2009 release of Hidden Arsenal. Where other of Ally of Justice's effects were far too narrow to find use, Ally of Justice Cataster had a very strong and very general effect that made it a staple in almost any deck capable of tuning into a level 5. When Ally of Justice Cataster engages in battles, it automatically destroys any non-dark monster at the start of the damage step. Now, while Dark might be one of the game's historically stronger attributes, being able to safely attack into and clear any non-dark attribute monster was a huge way of clearing threats, like Blackluster Soldier Envoy at the beginning and a million other cards. But one good card doesn't make a good archetype, especially when said card only stands out by deviating from the core strategy. The Allies of Justice are light hard counters, and Ally of Justice Cataster is good because it isn't. And haunting this list at number 3, we have the Ghostricks. This line of spectral, playful, dark attribute creatures debuted in the 2013 set Shadow Specters. They're fiend, zombies, fairies, and spellcasters, and they're really not so scary, both in the sense that they're kind of cute, and also aren't a competitive threat. Befitting their Halloween theme, the Ghostricks are all about hitting you with a jump scare by flipping themselves face up, and the scares continue because they're also about frightening your opponent into flipping themselves face down. But as silly and fun as that is, it's not really a huge threat to your opponent's life points. And their menace is further distilled by an unfortunate shared effect that plagues all of their main deck monsters. If you don't already control a Ghostrick, you can't normal summon a Ghostrick. While they do have workarounds like Ghostrick Shot and Ghostrick Festival, a Ghostrick Link 1 that can use a set Ghostrick as material, these options don't really bring the strategy up to speed so much as make it a baseline playable archetype. The level 1 Fiends are reactive hand traps, the level 2 Spellcasters have their effects mostly related to battle position control and some consistency quirks, the level 3 Zombies have beneficial effects a la Mill, Burn, Surge, Attack Boost, etc, etc. And Ghostrick Siren is a level 4 fairy capable of milling out your own deck, searching, and also booking your opponent. Their Extra Deck Xyz monsters generally follow the same rank and typing convention. They have plenty of traps and field spells, but are still lacking in competitive placements. And that's just because building your archetype on the idea that monsters are all scared of getting normal summoned is a difficult proposition. They have a unique playstyle and fun art, but were designed to struggle, and they do. Except in Duel Links, where they got a skill that totally bypassed every Ghostrick downside. Ghostrick Invitation is an archive skill usable by every character that lets you reveal either Ghostrick Witch, a Ghostrick level 1, or a Ghostrick field spell to set a Ghostrick monster from deck and mill a Ghostrick spell or trap. This set monster can be flipped on the same turn, opening up your Ghostrick normal summons and giving you a turn 1 flip activation. This skill locked you out of any normal or special summoning non-Ghostricks with the exception of the extra deck, but that didn't matter. By circumventing every problem Ghostricks faced in the TCG, Duel Links made these cute little spirits actually scary. Bannably scary, in fact. Still, any archetype can be good if you magically address every issue with a skill, and the Ghostricks, as cool as they are, rank as one of Konami's stranger archetypes to underperform competitively. Have you ever started a game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And then felt like you should maybe do anything else? Play another game maybe? That's exactly what this list runner-up archetype is for. The Vaylantz take number 2. An archetype introduced in 2022's Tactical Master set, the Vaylantz mostly consists of water attribute spellcasters and fire attribute machine pendulum monsters. The strategy of the Vaylantz is to basically turn your game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Into a different game, the game of Vaylantz. All of the Vaylantz main deck monsters can special summon themselves and have an effect that activates on special summon, but before you get them as a monster, you must first scale them, and then activate their pendulum scale effect, allowing them to move up their column to the corresponding right or leftmost unoccupied main monster zone. They're also all scale 1 by the way, so you won't be conducting a pendulum summon off the bat without breaking into the Vaylantz extra deck or running another pendulum card. As mentioned, they all have effects that activate on special summon, but they also have effects that activate when they shift main monster zones. This can be accomplished using the effects of the Vaylantz cards, like Nezuki the Vaylantz Ninja and Vaylantz Buster Baron, and also Sinnet Switch, a continuous spell from almost 20 years ago that can actually be searched by Vaylantz Wars, the place of beginning. Additionally, the scale 10 Vaylantz fusion pendulum monster Vaylantz Genesis Grand Duke can be brought out of the extra deck by tributing a high-level Vaylantz monster in a main monster zone in the extra monster zone column. That's a lot of words to explain that if you summon Vaylantz Dominator Duke with its own effect and then use one of your mini tools to move it over one more zone, your Vaylantz High Pendulums can enter play. And Arctos 12, the Vaylantz Chronoclasm, is almost as easy to cheat out, requiring only the contact fusion of 2 high-level Vaylantz monsters. Now, seems like a good time to bring up that making an archetype very complicated doesn't necessarily make it very good. And actually, things get a bit more complicated. The Vaylantz field spells, Vaylantz World Shinra Bansho and Vaylantz World Konagwizen, come as a pair. To activate one to your side of the field, you must also place its partner from your deck to your opponent's side of the field. This is great for turning off infinite impermanence in your opponent's hand during combos on turn 1, and also great for your Vaylantz plays. Together, these field spells rewrite the rules of Yu-Gi-Oh! Into a game where card placement is as important as cards in your hand. While your opponent controls an effect monster in a main monster zone in the same column as one of your monsters, you can use Konagwizen to push their monster back in line to their spell and trap card zone, destroying whatever card occupied the spot previously. Shinra Bansho provides some recovery by letting you bring one of your monsters in the spell and trap card zone forward to an empty main monster zone in the same column. Combined with the Vaylantz Penchant for shifting zones, this provides the Vaylantz player with both extension and non-traditional methods for breaking an opponent's board. Here's where things get even sillier. You don't play the game of Vaylantz alone. You give your opponent a field spell and they can use it too, and also yours. Both players can activate the ignition effects of Shinra Bansho and Konagwizen, though only while both field spell zones are occupied. There's no denying that the Vaylantz are a strange archetype, and it's also true that Yu-Gi-Oh's weirder group of cards are often some of the most interesting and fun to play. At the same time, the Vaylantz haven't seen a great deal of general play outside of those on their same silly wavelength. They're capable of explosive combos, but are overly convoluted, and struggle with interruption, floodgates, and running significant non-engine as a result of that complication. And we're receiving a message from the great beyond. Nope, it's not an ad for HelloFresh. It's this list number 1, strangest struggling archetype, the Spirit Message. These cards first released in the 2003 set Labyrinth of Nightmare, and on release consisted of 1 continuous trap and 4 continuous spells. These were Destiny Board and the 4 Spirit Messages. During your opponent's end phase, Destiny Board's effect would resolve, placing a Spirit Message card from your hand or deck to the spell and trap card zone. The Spirit Message would appear in sequence, starting with Spirit Message I, followed by Spirit Message N, followed by Spirit Message A, and concluding with Spirit Message L. When Destiny Board and the 4 Spirit Message cards are all placed on the field, you win the duel. This alternate win condition was already impossibly hard to achieve in 2003, and would only get worse over time. While the individual Spirit Messages weren't exactly dead in hand, since Destiny Board could place them from hand using its effect, they were effectively useless draws that you'd never want to see. And since Destiny Board required at least 4 of your opponent's end phases to finally win, chances were bad you were going to draw at least one of the Spirit Message spells, whose only effect is to specify that they can't be placed on the field, except by the effect of Destiny Board. And to make everything worse, Destiny Board strategies instantly lose to any form of removal. Since Destiny Board, the continuous trap, has a built-in self-destruct where if it or any of its Spirit Messages are removed from the field, all of them get destroyed together. Mystical Space Typhoon, for example, clobbers Destiny Board strategies completely. And another problem, because we clearly don't have enough. As you place more Spirit Messages, you run out of space to use your other spells and traps. Or worse, if you have any other spell and trap stuck on the field, you might not be able to place a Spirit Message at all, wasting precious enemy end phases. Destiny Board would remain one of the game's most ill-thought-out strategies for many years, until 2019's legendary duelist Immortal Destiny gave much-needed life support to the ghostly archetype. While the Spirit Message cards were used by Yami Bakura in the anime, another Bakura card from Labyrinth of Nightmare, the Dark Necrofear and Dark Spirit of the Silent, had no real connection to Destiny Board. Legendary duelist Immortal Destiny changed that with new support that drew faint lines between all of these Bakura cards. Dark Spirit of Banishment and Dark Spirit of Malice joined the Dark Spirit of the Silent, and had effects to support the level 8 Fiend monsters, letting them synergize with Dark Necrofear and the new Cursed Necrofear, who could revive itself from the graveyard after destruction by an opponent, destroying cards on their field equal to the number of face-up spell or trap cards you control with different names. This obviously plays nicely with the various Spirit Message cards all having different names. But the new field spell Dark Sanctuary was an even bigger boon to these wayward, talkative souls. This new field spell provided some stall power by forcing your opponent to flip a coin with every single attack. On tails, battle continued as normal, but on heads, Dark Sanctuary got to negate the attack and inflict battle damage equal to half the value of the attacking monster. Additionally, spirit messages that would be placed on the field by the affected Destiny board could be summoned as normal monsters instead, but could neither attack nor prevent your opponent from attacking directly. Dark Sanctuary did protect them from all card effects except your own Destiny board, and the new Spirit Message strat got even more consistent with Dark Spirit Mastery and Sentence of Doom. Mastery lets you search Destiny board or a level 8 Fiend, and could banish itself from grave to recycle Spirit Message stranded in your hand in exchange for fresh draws. While Sentence of Doom lets you reclaim banished Fiends and also accelerated Spirit Message placements, treated as being placed by the effective Destiny board. The new Bakura cards gave the Spirit Message archetype much needed flexibility, letting you advance the win condition faster and more consistently, while also giving you outs to abandon a doomed message for new draws. In the end, Spirit Message is a truly unique deck, which is a much kinder way of saying very strange. And of course, it doesn't really work. It remains more of a challenge to see if you can pull off a win in this way, rather than a cohesive strategy to help you see more wins. But true duelists play with the cards they like, and I'll pose the question, which is more memorable? The 11th time you came in 5th at locals playing whatever was good, or that time someone flipped a killer final combo, banishing your mind to the Shadow Realm forever. Something to think about. The spirit messages totally take the number 1 on this list. Alright, and that's the list. But there are other strange ways to play with redacted odds of success. So if I missed your favorite, or if you have ideas for future videos just like this one, please let us know down in the comments below.